No, dude. So a thing happened to me recently, and it kind of like reinvigorated my want to do this podcast. Sort of reminded me why I started doing this in the first place. I was at a party not too long ago, a social soiree, as it were. I get invited to those pretty frequently, which is something that I know that Dan can't relate to.
Sure.
But, John knows what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. We have friends. They want us to go places with them. And while we were there, I ran into a guy, just a random schmuck, a fucking nobody, frankly. And we were talking, as one sometimes does, in order to feel superior to nobodies. And the topic of this podcast came up. And first of all, he like really wants to be a guest on this podcast without knowing what the podcast was, which is already kind of a red flag. Like if it's like, if I'm just like, yeah, I have a podcast, people are like, oh, dude, like, oh no, I've been on like my friend's podcast, like it's really good, and I'm just like, you don't even know what the podcast is, brother. Like, come on. So I'm trying to like explain to him, kind of like the gist, and now he knows. I really hope he's not listening to this actually, because he'll know exactly who he is, and because I kind of explained the entire podcast.
Hey, what's up, schmuck?
Hey, what's up, schmuck? Hey,
nobody? What's up?
Hey, what's up, you fucking loser?
Okay, well.
Anyway, so. And I'm kind of like trying to explain to him like what the podcast is, and then I'm like, yeah, so we're like watching like the Marvel movies in order, we're talking about them, whatever. And he's like, oh, which one are you starting with? And I said, we're going like, in sort of like the like canonical release order. So we started with Iron Man, and we're kind of moving through. And this fucking guy is like, well, that's not actually the canon release order, right?
Here we go.
And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, technically, that would have been the canon release order until Spider-Man: No Way Home comes out, but because it ties the Spider-Man universes canonically into the Marvel universe, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie is actually the first canon Marvel film. So you've already made an error with your podcast, because that's the film that you should have started with. And in that moment, I was like, I fucking hate fans of this fucking, like what the fuck? Just be normal, bro. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And it's like, that spirit was the thing that inspired me to want to do this podcast in the first place. It's like, I just want to check dorks. And so so maybe if that guy is listening to this, in the moment I was being polite to you about it, but I just want you to know internally, you should never have said that to me. I was very upset about that.
Yeah, if you catch me saying anything like that, unironically ever, like not even just in this podcast, just in fucking general, just please murder me.
Yeah.
In Minecraft,
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Minecraft, in World of Warcraft too.
Yeah, murder me in World of Warcraft. But I just want you to know, Dan, it's like, that's like your guy.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
My guy.
That is who you are in this podcast.
Because that guy would listen to the podcast. He'd agree with all your and like somewhere out there's like a cool guy. He's like maybe like sipping on a little glass of scotch, smoking a rollie. Sitting out by a pool somewhere, being jerked off by a supermodel, and he's listening to the podcast and he's agreeing with me and my points.
Yeah,
and I just
that
want
guy's
you to
listening to the podcast by the pool while he's smoking and drinking. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And he is, and every time I talk, he's like, you know what, Christian? Good point, man.
Alternate scenario, he's super drunk, wasted his life, and is actually the pool boy hanging out on furniture he shouldn't be on while drinking the owner's whiskey.
Right, and getting his dick sucked by a supermodel.
Yeah.
But it's actually the pool supplies, the cleaning tools that he's using, the vacuum that you put at the bottom, right? That's what's actually happening. So.
So it's just a drunk guy fucking a pool vacuum.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll give that to you, Dan. That guy would agree with me too, because I'm a man of the people from all classes and all walks of life. I have lots of things that are relatable to lots of people, regardless of where you found yourself in life at this point.
And if we've learned anything, it's that society as a whole would love this podcast. So please share with your friends and like the podcast however you do that.
Yeah, download it too.
I know.
Yeah,
but don't
do it.
But don't share this podcast with dorks. You know what I mean?
No, share them with dorks. No, we could use the listens. It's fine. Yeah.
Don't listen to share it with like a cool guy. Maybe he's like sitting by a pool. Maybe he has a rollie in his hand. Maybe he has a nice glass of bourbon.
And it's time to actually talk about Marvel stuff.
Woo! Let's go. Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Shirtless Pool Man, and I'm here, and this is the Pool Cast.
Hey, and I only associate with very cool people that aren't super dorks, and I'm Dan.
And I'm John, and I get invited to a lot of parties, I promise.
Wow. Well, I'm jealous.
Woo! What's going on, everyone? It's another episode of your favorite podcast, Cape Shit. Today, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, but is he the Winter Soldier, or is the Winter Soldier someone else entirely?
Yeah,
that's
a
question.
Confused.
Yeah, I actually was, by the way. I was like, because I was like, oh, it's Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and then some other guy's the Winter Soldier, and I'm like, what even is this? What the fuck?
Yeah, when I was titling my notes, I put Captain America : the Winter Soldier, and I was like, wait, is that actually the title? Because that would kind of imply that Captain America is the Winter Soldier, so shouldn't it be Captain America and the Winter Soldier?
No, because it's Captain America Civil War, but he's not a Civil War.
Well, there's no colon there.
There is.
There is?
Captain America : Civil War is the next Captain America movie.
Yeah, but a man can't be a Civil War. That's just
preposterous.
preposterous.
Man can't be a Civil War.
But he can't be a Winter Soldier
yeah,
either.
He
That's
can't.
also
He could totally
insane.
be a Winter Soldier.
No, because Bucky's the Winter Soldier. Sorry, spoilers, everybody.
Oh my God.
It's Bucky.
What? No, hold on. We haven't got there yet.
You're going to have to explain your thesis to me on that.
I know. Yeah, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is a pretty normal way to name a movie to discuss what the topic of that movie is.
I don't think it was.
I don't think it was either.
That was weird. It was a weird title to me, dude.
I don't think so, actually.
And normally, I gotta say too, this is the point in the podcast where Dan's gonna give you some fun backstory.
Oh, I've got some real fun stuff today.
Oh,
he's got fun stuff. He's got plot synopsis. He's got actors. He's got movies. But I was listening to a podcast recently, and I hated it. By the way, but they did a thing. It's called Cape Shit. Yeah, where one of the guys would talk, and then he has this other guy that's just hyping him up the entire time, and it was really
that's what we gotta do.
But I was thinking, you know what? These sections, they get a little long, they get a little meandering, we get a little lost in them. So I think that for this edition, Dan, you give the plot synopsis, and I'll be here to give you backup, and I'll hype it. I'll hype it up for you.
Please get me out of here.
Well, the big news here. Here we go. Okay. This is directed by Anthony and Joe Russo.
Let's go.
Wow.
Anthony and Joe Russo. Let's go.
Yeah. Because they're also the two that are going to direct Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame.
Woo! You've heard of those movies, and you love them. Let me tell you.
You know how many visual effects shots there were, Christian? Guess.
How many visual effects shots were there, Dan?
No matter how many you guess, it's still going to be more than that. That's how many.
Oh my God.
2,500.
14 million? Oh.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, that's less than what I... Okay.
2,500 visual effects shots created by 6 companies, which is kind of wild. They spread out the work so much because there was so much to do.
Absolutely wild, by the way. From my I hear that. That's wild.
You know what else is wild? $714 million worldwide.
No. Say that number again.
I need you to stop.
714 million. Wow.
I'm having such a hard time.
I know, this is terrible. But what I found interesting when I was reading up about this movie a little bit more was when this came out, there were actually a lot of people that compared this, and I'm curious if you guys got any of this, but a lot of people compared it to Metal Gear Solid, the video game series.
You know, dude, that's so funny because yes. Well, but no, the movie, kind of, but like, specifically when he's fighting the terrorists on the ship. Yeah, that's literally the start of Metal Gear Solid 2. That is how Metal Gear Solid 2 opens,
So one of the critics said that this film was pretty close to Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, stating that the first half of The Winter Soldier feels like probably the closest movie adaptation we've gotten to Metal Gear Solid 2, with similar elements, stealth, evil group, moral dilemma about sacrificing one's personal liberties for the feeling of security, blah 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 blah. Right. So it's kind of interesting to hear that. So overall, this was an interesting shift watching this movie, because I feel like there was a kind of shift in the action and the shots, and one of the things this movie was praised for was that it took a little bit of a step back on as much CGI and focused for some practical effects. Even with all the visual shots, there was a lot of really intense fighting sequences and action sequences in this movie that felt a bit more real, I guess, than other ones, especially like the ones with Cap running down hallways and pushing people over and busting through doors. We had a lot of conversations about him jumping through doors. So there were a lot of door breaks in this movie. I thought that was funny.
A lot of door breaks.
Yeah. That's where we're at. Captain America, Winter Soldier. Love the hype, man. We should continue that forever. So.
Please never do that again.
Okay.
Right. No, you know what? I stopped when John asked me to stop because I respect his opinion on these matters.
Sure. Okay.
As one should.
As one should. And you know what? It's probably for reasons like that John gets invited to so many parties, because he says things and people say, you know what? I respect that.
Well, there you go. Let's get into it. Cap.
Yep.
Running at the speed of light. On your left.
On your left.
Oh, yeah.
On your left.
He could do this all day.
Hear this a lot.
Yeah. He could. He certainly could do that.
You know, I didn't remember all of the Bucky Cap interactions in this movie, but I was really hoping at one point when Bucky and Cap were fighting that he was going to say, I could do this all day, and then see Bucky's face go, wait a minute. Is that Steve? And, and then just to see what your reaction would have been to such a ridiculous moment.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that didn't happen personally.
I know.
But I mean, hey, that's just me.
Well, hey, we see our first introductions here to Sam Wilson, who is later to be known as the Falcon. And we see that Cap just runs at a ridiculously fast pace. What I noticed through a lot of this movie is while Captain America is extremely popular and has a museum and has all this stuff, that he's just able to kind of be in the open all the time without people like surrounding him.
Well, to be fair, it was very early.
Yeah, true.
And he was wearing a hoodie.
Yeah. When it wasn't early, he was wearing a hoodie or a hat with some glasses.
Or a hat with some glasses. Yeah. You walk into that Captain America museum, all of a sudden there's statues everywhere of Captain America wearing a hoodie. That would just blow his entire thing up. People would just be like, hold on, wait, I know you.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's my question about Captain America. Does he have to work out? Like, what's the deal there? If he just stopped doing physical activities, would he eventually just get fat and like less muscular?
I think yes. I think I don't think he would ever get fat because his metabolism is probably insane.
Yeah.
But he definitely needs to work out because he's still human. Like, he's still got human physiology. It's just heightened.
Yeah.
advance.
Okay. Word.
Yeah, there are also in the future of the MCU, we'll see more people that took the super serum, who have aged and whose bodies have like not become fat, but like not ripped, like
Right,
like
totally.
his. So they can age, they can lose their mass, and they can kind of not be so bulky like that anymore.
Yeah, dude. So like we also around this point, Black Widow makes a little bit of an appearance, and my first thought was, oh no, this is going to be like a prominently featured Black Widow thing, which I was right about. But I'll say off the rip, this is like I didn't absolutely hate every single instance of Black Widow in this movie the same way that I have every other movie up till this point. Like, I at least can kind of see your guys' point when you're like, just wait, because like Black Widow, it's like she sucks now, but she's gonna but later and I'm like, okay, I sort of see the beginnings of that happening because like Natasha wasn't like the worst character in this movie. As often I feel she is when, she's around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Someone just rang my doorbell. No, keep going. I'm just telling.
Okay, thanks for letting us know.
For the recording, when you hear that on the recording, someone rang my doorbell. I'm going to ignore it. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. In this movie, they made her more of a character with a backstory and emotions, and it was more in depth this time for sure. She wasn't just an extra plot point or person to put on screen for looks.
Right, for sure. She actually had a little impact in the story.
Yeah.
Although we do still see her get manhandled in this movie, as is, of course, necessary in every single movie the Black Widow's in. You need like a big burly guy touching her face sensually and aggressively.
Also, we get the shot of her ass as she walks out of the frame. So,
there was one. Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. It didn't really make any sense.
Hey man, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, of course. Heyo.
Heyo.
Yeah, so when Black Widow comes to pick up the fossil, as she refers to him as, Steve also pulls out a little notepad at this time when he's talking to Sam about things he has to catch up on. It has things on it like I Love Lucy and a couple other things, but also Steve Jobs just in general is on there. And then I started watching the rest of the movie and noticed, Apple was a sponsor of this movie. Got it. Like Apple was all over this movie.
This movie, more so, like, the likes of which we have not seen since the original Thor movie. There is so much corporate sponsorship inside this movie. Like, they blow up a Penske truck. It's like you have, like, prominently featured Starburst at points. It's like there's Apple shit all over the place. It's like, I mean, kind of to a point where it's like, and like sometimes it's like it's kind of fun for me to be nitpicky just for the sake of being nitpicky, but I'll actually say the level of like advertisement in this film like took me out of it at points because it was like there was so much of it, like a lot was going on here.
Yeah, there was a lot for sure. I agree. And so they're heading out on their first mission of the movie.
And so, dude, okay, so as soon as Natasha picks up Steve, the very next scene, they're in a plane.
Yep.
And immediately I'm like, are we gonna get the scene?
Dude,
me too. Are we gonna get the scene where they jump out of a plane?
I can't believe it, man.
Do we get the scene with the cheesy liner?
Yep.
So the dude.
Wait, what did he say? Oh, he said.
Yeah.
Cap jumps, and Rumlow said. The guy is talking to Rumlow and says, "Was he wearing a parachute?" And Rumlow goes, "No, he wasn't."
And he kind of like smirks and laughs about it as if like we're used to it by now.
Right.
Oh god.
It's too much, dude. I'm just saying. Like it's far too much. At that point in the movie, I legitimately paused it and looked over at Allison and was just like,
you can't make this
dude,
up.
like Yeah, it's kind of insane. It's like they need to just hit their plane jump quota, or else people aren't going to be hyped enough.
Oh, that was just so wild.
Yeah.
So Cap is heading to this ship that's been overtaken by French pirates. Question I have...
again, it's another classic instance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where they're evil because they don't speak English.
Well,
as soon as you... Yeah.
They're not Russian or German this time, though.
Yeah, they're not Russian or German this time.
They're French
yeah,
this
exactly.
time.
Yeah, which is, the
real villains of the real world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything else is just a smokescreen. Really, we need to be focusing on the French. I feel like they're sort of the arbiters of doom in our modern world. But again, it's kind of just like a lazy Marvel thing. But I always notice it where it's like, if they need you to know that someone is like bad, they're just like, oh, just have them like not speak English. And if they're just kind of there with guns, not speaking English to each other, it's like, oh, it's an easily identifiable enemy. The entirety of the audience can look at it and be like, ooh, I don't much care for those non-English speaking guys.
I wonder if movies that are based in other non-English languages utilize English characters to describe that they are evil.
I don't know. That's actually a good question.
Just like utilizing essentially any other language besides the one it's based out of to represent that they're not the good guys,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have
not
to
cultured enough.
Yeah, we'll have to watch the Bollywood MCU next to see if
right, dude.
Yeah.
Man, I would have so much fun. Yeah.
That would be interesting. So I was gonna ask, as Cap is on this boat, if you remember from the first Captain America movie, one of the things I said that was my criticism was that Cap running through one of the facilities with a giant red, white, and blue shield that was super bright didn't make a ton of sense.
Sure.
This looked like he was wearing a covert shield, like a version of the shield that was dumbed down, like the colors were brought down to be super bland, maybe for being more tactical in these moments. Did you guys notice that too?
Yeah. I mean, the shield, like it doesn't have that sheen on it. Like it's a little more muted. Well, and also, I mean, I think too, like a thing that they really went out of their way to do in this movie that worked actually. Can we get some horns? Some horns. Whoa! Hey, what's up? We're in Christian's corner of things that he thought worked. Follow me into here now. Like the way that he utilized the shield in the movie was like actually good.
Yeah.
Like because I felt like in the first Captain America movie, and even like the first Captain America movie was the one I probably liked the most out of like the first phase. And so it almost felt like all the shield shit was just kind of like fan servicey. Like, like it was like stuff would happen. It was this epic, like he's punching him with the shield. And then it's like, oh, here he goes. He's going to throw the shield. And then it's a close up on. But like this one, I sort of liked how it's like he's doing a bunch of shit with the shield. But it's not like the predominant focus. It's like he's doing other shit too. He just also happens to be throwing the shield every once in a while. Or he's like punching and kicking, but then he's like ding and he like hits someone or he like blocks something. And it's like less of the focal point of every scene and more like a tool that he just kind of happens to be utilizing.
It's more like integrated into his fighting style.
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought this part on the ship, because like I think sort of like to your point, and I agreed with it in the first movie, it's like the whole him storming the base scene like felt a little cheesy. Like like the whole thing kind of felt out of place. But I feel like they flowed it pretty well in this boat scene actually, because it's like, he is sort of this like larger than life kind of thing because he's a superhero and that's what it's going to be. But it's like him having the shield made sense. The way he was dressed made sense. Like him sort of stealthily taking out people made sense. Like it's like it all worked within the context of the scene that they set for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I felt like in this, they actually choreographed really well all of the fight scenes and the action scenes and all that, and it all felt way more realistic in the best way, it can for being a superhero movie,
Well, I would just like, if I have like one criticism towards it, and this is sort of a criticism that I think was prevalent through the entire movie, is that the cutscene, like the fight scenes were so jumpy, and that I didn't like, actually. Like, because I agree, I thought that it was all handled better, but it's like, I mean, they couldn't like keep something on the screen for more than like 3 seconds at most. It's just like cut, 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 cut. It's like punch, cut, kick, cut, shield, cut, punch, cut, like over and over. And it felt a little jarring. Like, I sort of wish that we had been able to see some of those scenes play out a bit more, like, because, at a certain point, I almost kind of like lost the plot of what was happening in some of these scenes, just because it's so all over the place. It's just like, like action shot, action shot, action shot, which, that's like a stylistic choice, but I feel like it loses some of the impact for me.
Yeah, that's a big thing when it comes to choreographing and editing fight scenes, is that you want to have like a philosophy for the way that you shoot it, because you want to get like the action of like a punch or a kick or a hit or whatever, and you want to see the impact of it. But when you cut so much between like every single part of the fight scene, you lose the impact, and it just becomes like jarring to watch. I will say though that like one of the things that I did, I mean, like about 50% of this movie is just like action, right? Which is kind of crazy. But they really brought on like a solid fucking team for the choreographing and the stunt choreography in general. And shout outs to Corridor Crew on YouTube. They have a stuntman react series, and they do a lot of Marvel stuff with like actual stuntmen who worked on the Marvel movies, and they break down a lot of fights that were actually in this movie too.
Oh, nice.
But a lot of the stuff that people remember from this movie is like Cap versus Bucky, and like with the whole fight, with the knife fight, where Bucky's like kind of like flipping and like dropping the knife and picking it up with the other hand and all that shit. Like that shit gets remembered, and I think in part because of the choreography, but also in part because of the editing. Like they don't cut a ton out of that. You get to see the whole motion, all the choreography. It's really cool.
Yeah, I felt like in this movie, and it shows a lot in this first scene here where they're on the ship, is we really felt the power of the characters in this one. Like like Bucky's power, Cap's power. Like the thing, and I think to Christian's point is, in the first movie for Cap, every fight scene where he would like use the shield or whatever felt like a moment that they were setting up to like take a picture and then make that like a poster.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
For
every
exactly.
punch was like a fanfare, whereas this was like there was just so much. A lot of it was just one-offs of him just handling business.
And I think a lot of the fight scenes in this movie too, like I think I actually like really did like unironically, I actually liked about this movie is that it's like it kind of did the opposite of what a lot of Marvel shit has done up till this point, where it's like there are like subtleties. There are a lot of things that are understated in this, where it's like even like Captain's like fighting someone, he just kind of like swats them and they like fucking fly into a wall or whatever. But then it doesn't like cut to a scene of someone in like in an airplane watching them being like, oh my God, did you just see the effortless way that, which is like, it's like there's been a lot of that up till this point, and I never like it. But this is like kind of cool. He's just like running around. And it's like, someone like full blast, like hits him with something. And then he kind of like almost effortlessly, like, is doing things and like, he's just causing chaos. But like at no point do they necessarily need to remind the audience that he is in fact a super soldier. Yeah. It's like he just sort of is that, and the scenes reflect him as being that, and then we just get over it and keep going. And that's how this shit should be handled. And really it hasn't been, like, it truly has not been handled the way that they handled it in Captain America Winter Soldier, this is the first movie of the MCU definitively that they've like taken this approach to it. And it's a way better approach. Like, it's so much better like this. I want them to never go back to whatever that phase 1 shit was.
Well, this is why Joe and Anthony Russo were put in charge of the most important movies of the MCU, right? We've got this one, which was really important for Cap's story, but then we've got Captain America Civil War, which is also a really important story. And then obviously the crowning jewel of Infinity War and Endgame are all in their hands as well. So it makes a lot of sense after seeing this movie, like why they were put in charge of those bigger films.
Yeah, well, and you know, kind of on like the fight scene thread too, like, you know, as we progress through this like boat thing, we also get like a Black Widow fight scene. And this kind of goes into what I was saying before, where I'm like, because like one of my biggest issues with Black Widow up until now, and it's kind of like an issue that I have with like the way that a lot of the like female leads in the MCU end up being portrayed, is that it's like they show like a hot girl in a skimpy outfit and the audience is supposed to be like, oh, look at this hot girl. But then they like need her to punch someone in the face, so that it's like, but she's actually like a punch you in the face kind of, you know, whatever. And then that's like the only explanation for their character that we really get. And now we just are supposed to assume that they're strong. And like, up until now, like a lot of the Black Widow shit, again, like really over the top, really overstated. Like she's getting into like slugfests with dudes. And it's like, it never added up to me that well, because I'm just like, you know, two muscly ass, like 300-pound goons would motherfucking kill Natasha in like the scenarios that we've seen up until now. But in this one, it was like jumps and kicks, which I can believe. It's like, it's not this like fucking like we're trading punches kind of thing. It's like she's like kicking, like elbowing people in the head. It's like stuff where I'm a lot more inclined to be like, okay, this is a much more believable thing. And even when she's doing the acrobatic shit, it's not this like dumb fucking like it's a scene of her doing 4 backflips in the air for like no apparent reason. It's like all of the shit that she does seems like it has some kind of purpose to her actually having done it. And when she's like striking people with powerful blows, it's like she's kicking them and elbowing them and stuff, which I'm actually like, realistically, that would be doing the damage that is being portrayed on the screen. So I was like, her handling was just much better, I guess is my point. It's like, it was chill.
Yeah, just in general across the board, I think all the power changes were good.
So one of the things that like I really liked about the action in this movie, but also go back to what I was talking about, like the recap about what I didn't like about the Avengers, is the way that like whenever Steve like punches or like kicks someone really hard, they fucking go flying, right? And that's something that I really liked about this movie, and something that like a lot of other superhero action movies get really weirdly. Like when you punch someone really hard from like a super strength person and they go flying, it never looks sellable. Like it always looks fake. But in this, starting this movie in the Marvel series, like every time a superpowered person like punches or kicks someone, the other person goes flying. They sell that shit so well.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, to that point, like a thing that they got right in this movie is that like the damage done is like proportional to the effort that Captain America is putting at. When he punches someone really hard, they fly really far, and when he like kind of like, you know, punches them like lighter, they don't like sell it as if he just like did like a full power thing. And again, they don't spend a lot, and like not even a lot, they don't spend any time dwelling on that, and that like because for sure it sells it.
Yeah, it bakes it into the reality of the universe. But I will say that every time I do see Captain America, specifically Captain America, doing this shit to people, I'm like, that he just murdered that dude.
Yes.
Every single one. I think there was one dude on that boat where I was like, okay, that guy's probably not dead because he just kind of flipped him over on his back.
Yeah.
But everyone that he like kicked, hit with his shield, he like chucked the shield, it ricochets after like 3 different people.
Yeah,
and, like,
ricochet and hits them in the head.
Yeah. I'm like, those dudes are all fucking dead. And you
dude.
can't tell me that
Nah, dude,
Captain
they're just
America was
sleeping.
just like, this is fine. Like, just taking, like, even if they're not innocent lives, just like taking lives, he's like, it's for the greater good. I'm Captain America and I approve these murders.
Yeah, but
like,
they're French, so it's fine,
that's
right?
Yeah.
We've already determined this.
We do get one scene on the boat that I didn't like. Can we get some?
Here we go.
some air horns, but sad.
Whoa, sad air horns. It's Christian's didn't like corner where he's on the boat and he's like having like a showdown with like the big evil terrorist guy. And I forget exactly what the terrorist dude says to him, but he's like taunting him and like is like, you need to fight me without your shield.
He said, "I thought you were more than a shield."
I thought you were more than it.
yeah.
And then Captain America puts his shield down and like then starts like duking it out, which I just thought was really out of character for him, because like his whole thing is that he's like, you know what, dude, the greater purpose is the important part. I'm not this like ego-driven guy, like, and that's like specifically why he was having tension with Tony Stark, is because he's like, this dude's so commanded by his ego and I'm not that way. And he's like written to not really be like that. And then there's just this one weird scene in the movie where some guy taunts him and then he's like, I'm going to do this ego-driven thing. Like, and that just sort of felt like one of those, this is for the audience moments to me, where they're like, it's an audience. It's like now the audience gets to see it, and it just didn't feel like realistic to anything we've seen Captain America do up till that point. And then he like doesn't really have another moment like that, so it's just this weird thing.
You know what it is? It's that French people are to Steve Rogers as what like being called chicken is to Marty McFly. Like he just can't handle that shit.
French people are to Steve Rogers what Pakistanis are to Iron Man.
Yeah.
He just sees red.
He's just like, I just can't fucking stand this guy. Ooh, he's gonna get under my skin.
Well, we've been on this boat for quite a while, so what we do wrap up here with is Widow was actually sent to get information off of that boat, and Cap is under the assumption that she has jeopardized the mission. So where is this gonna lead to? We get to see SHIELD headquarters, the Triskelion, the Triskelion.
And this is
stupid name.
And this is one of the only moments in the movie where I was like, this is so obviously a green screen that it like kind of like took me out of it a little bit. Like I was like, the green screen thing here was like, they did not sell it, in my opinion. No. It was really, really obvious that it was 2 actors in front of a green screen.
That happens a lot in Triskelion.
Yeah.
Yes, the Triskelion.
Triskelion, bro. They said it in the movie.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't believe them.
Yeah, we also get to see, by the way, Captain America on a Harley Davidson motorcycle. It's another.
He's a biker.
He's a biker. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get a nice scene of him riding this motorcycle with the Harley Davidson logo prominently featured, and I kind of wonder how much money they spent on that.
Well, that's the only way that Cap would look cool, right?
Right. So of course.
You gotta make
he's like
him
an
look
all-American kind of guy.
Yeah. So Fury shows us two things here. Fury shows us one. He shows us his eye at some point here in the movie. But the backstory he gives us a little bit is he said the last time he trusted someone, he lost an eye,
which was dumb. But I didn't like that. I heard that and I was like, "Come on, dude."
There are a lot of lines in this movie where I was
that's
like,
why I wrote that down. But we do get to see what he calls Project Insight, which is 3 helicarriers that basically, once they are in the air, they stay in the air using some Stark Industries propulsion systems that Tony helped out with. And Cap, you know what? He's not a big fan of this governmental oversight. And he makes that very well known to Fury.
I mean, this just kind of goes back to how much military propaganda is enough military propaganda. But I mean, like, you know, they have Cap here as like a counterpoint to it, so it kind of it's not as like ham-fisted as it was in the first Captain America, because one of the things that I do like about Captain America as a character, like as he's written in the MCU, is that he's not just like super patriot, like, yeah, I'll just do whatever I'm told type of dude. He's got like his set of values, and if it means like, if upholding that set of values means going against the government or the system, then like so be it. And
and this is where we're getting his first kind of thoughts as to us leading up to Civil War in Cap's next movie. So this is kind of the first look at how Cap feels about the way that SHIELD interacts with the world and the way that, you know, Fury is trying to keep us safe, and in the future, you know, how Tony's trying to keep the world safe. And how those go against Cap's values. So that'll be interesting. So he spends some time trying to figure out what he's gonna do. Where, you know, what does he stand for? What does he want to do? So he goes and visits his own museum, in which, again, no one recognizes him while he's sitting there watching the movie.
Well, no, there's a kid. There's like a single child in the museum who does recognize him, and then he has this scene where he like stares at the child and like winks at him or whatever, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay. I didn't really get the point of that, but you know, it's fine.
Because Captain America's good with kids. That's what they want.
Yeah, but also it's like to imply the existence of one child who would recognize him in this thing. It's like, surely there would be others, right? But it's just there.
That
but
child's
there just
perception stat was off the charts.
Yeah, actually, did you guys know that child was a Spider-Man?
Oh, okay, here we go.
That was actually Spider-Man. It's crazy. Yeah.
So he checks out the Bucky Barnes Memorial. He's kind of reliving his past, and then he goes. And we realize that he's visited Peggy Carter, which this took me out completely. I couldn't.
Dude, this was like the worst. This was the most egregious shit in the entire movie for me.
Yeah, this was
like,
really bad.
I was like, just hire an old lady. Like, what the fuck? Like, it doesn't need.
They actually did. They actually did hire an old lady. So they tried doing this like old Peggy Carter thing a couple different ways. So they had her film her scenes, and then they wanted to do like a mix of CG and prosthetics, like kind of how they did Skinny Steve in the first movie. So they wanted to do that, but then they were like, oh, all these prosthetics are like getting in the way of her performance. So they tried to do it with like a different younger actress, and then that didn't work. And so what they actually ended up doing was they brought an actually like elderly actress to perform the lines, but then what they did was that they had her match the cadence of the performance that I forget her Haley Atwell. Her performance, they had her match, and then what they did was they like kind of projected the skin of the older lady onto Haley Atwell's performance, and
dude,
it's just weird because you could see her eyes and her teeth
and the mouth,
and the way the mouth moves, and then her voice doesn't really sell that it's coming from that body.
No, dude, it seriously, like, it was like on the level of like a Snapchat face filter. Like, it was like, it was
100%.
on that. Like, it was not good, dude. Like even like the wrinkles, like kind of around her mouth, like move like in this like weird way where it's like they never like changed their size. They just sort of like grow larger and smaller depending on where the mouth is. Like, that was not good. I didn't. And it's so interesting because later, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I'll say like later in the movie, we get another scene. It's just like a quick little flashback where we see skinny Steve Rogers again. And the skinny Steve Rogers in this movie was like so much better than every skinny Steve Rogers scene that we had in the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's like the technology has gotten better. It's just weird that like this was the best that they could do for the final cut of the movie, was this like grossly unrealistic looking old woman.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, you can't say anything. I mean, it was just terrible. It wasn't redeemable at all.
I'm gonna give them a cop out and say that they didn't have like the time to put into this one scene, and they tried it a couple different times until they were like, all right, we've spent enough time and resources trying to get this to work. Let's just go with whatever. And they've already done the skinny Steve, so they already knew how to do that. You know.
So to throw a counterpoint on that, it's like, this was supposed to be a really important moment for him.
Yeah.
Like, getting this conversation with her was, I think, even more important than the skinny Steve recall, right? With Bucky and him. Like, this should have been the moment where, like, he made a real conversation with Peggy that influenced him for the rest of this movie. And even if that may have been in there, it took me out completely because of just how terrible this CGI was on this.
I know, and Dan, and you're not normally complaining about CGI guy either.
No, I'm not.
I feel like in the CGI conversations, it's normally me and John like picking things apart, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I just thought the explosions were cool, you know. So it's like, so I just want the audience to understand too that like if Dan's clowning on your CGI, you probably fucked it, bro.
Yeah,
dude, and it sucks too because this is one of those scenes that I'm like, I'm a sucker for these types of scenes, you know, like.
Yeah.
This would definitely hit me in my feels, but I like as soon as I saw it, I paused the movie and like looked up how they did it because I was like, this isn't the greatest, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, to wrap up his tour of checking in with people, he visits Sam Wilson, who's hosting a event for people who've come out of the army or the military or wherever else they've come from to try to get them kind of functioning back in society, which was kind of an eye-opener for Steve. And so, you know, we see more of Steve and Sam kind of relating to each other and building a relationship here, which, you know, I didn't really remember a lot of Steve and Sam's origin story together. And seeing this movie really kind of solidified how close their relationship gets in the future. And it was a cool thing to see the building out of this relationship again from the start.
Yep. We also around this time get an appearance of the hot girl in the MCU, the true real Supreme Queen. Yeah, Maria Hill. Shout out as soon as she showed up in the movie. I know. I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude! She's my favorite hot girl in the." Because I think I said this like the first time she showed up, which was in the Avengers, I believe. But I like the fact that like she just exists and is just an attractive woman. And they don't have to like prove it to you. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like she's just there and she's very pretty, and then we all just get the fuck over it. And I think that might be the theme of Me Too. And I'm saying like this in regards to this movie as well as ones that we've seen in the past. The thing I liked about this, it's like I like the understated stuff. I like it when it's like it's just you're just presented with something. You as the audience get to make your own mind up about it, and then we just move the fuck on to whatever's coming next. And I feel like your girl Robin is the true hot girl of the MCU for that reason. She just shows up on screen. She says her line. She looks very good while she does it, and then we just blow past it and get on to the next thing, and it works for me.
To her as Robin instead of like Colby.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Well, yeah. So this is and Maria Hill's called because Fury is just pummeled by multiple police cars, a SWAT van, this battering ram to try to take down the windows of his car. Crazy
I think I want to point out during this scene is we actually get a reoccurrence of one of my least favorite Marvel tropes. Can we get some?
Here we go.
Okay, here we go. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Christian's least favorite Marvel tropes corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
They do this thing during this scene where there's like percentages
Loading
that are thrown
bars.
in for like no fucking it's like they're pummeling the car and it's like car integrity at 82%, and he's like, oh no, and then it's like car integrity at 60 it's 64% now, and he's like, oh, and it's like, now it's at 39 and it's just like, and it's like, it's a trope that they fall on a lot in these movies where it's like, okay, if you want to sell something as stressful, you just need an arbitrary number that just counts down and something bad, or it counts up in the case of like the Hulk's heart rate, for instance. It's like, that's an arbitrary number that counts up. It's like, but like in the Tony Stark movies, it's like, oh no, your battery's draining, so that's a number counting down. But they just sort of throw out a random number. You're to assume that if it gets too high or too low, something horrible is going to happen. And then they just keep feeding you that it's either increasing or it's decreasing, depending on what the bad thing is. And the person really needs to figure it out before it hits the other arbitrary number that is going to be bad when it hits. And they just like shamelessly do it again. And I would just ask that they stop. Just stop. It's like, because the thing is, you can just show damage to the fucking car without tying this shit. It's like the car's getting fucked up. It's like if they removed this like AI thing talking to Fury, like I think it would have actually made it more intense, because you as the audience are now like, oh no, like, oh, it looks like the car, it's getting shot up and it's getting fucked up, and like, and you're like, oh, when's it gonna, like it's obvious that eventually something's going to give. Like, you don't need to tell me that.
Yeah, these types of scenes happen a lot in these movies, but it just, for me, it just makes me think about Community, the TV series, because
we actually get an actor from Community in this movie too.
We have two actors from Community, actually, but because the Russo brothers did Community, right? So it's like a lot of the time, whenever I watch Community, I'm like, oh, these guys are so good at like action scenes and like different genres and shit like that. And it's really funny in Community because they mold the episode so well into their directorial style. And it just like works as a comedy trying to copy this other genre. And then I'm like, they probably like amp it up if they get a big feature film, right? Because it's no longer really a comedy trying to be a different genre. It's actually that action genre that they're trying to do with a little bit of comedy. But as I'm watching this, I'm realizing, no, it's literally the same process. It's just now on a big screen, because now I'm actually watching like a Community episode with a bigger budget, and their writing style, their directing style doesn't really change. It's still the same quality. And it kind of like, I don't know if I like it, but it definitely feels like the Russo brothers when I'm watching this shit.
Totally.
Yeah, I've never watched Community, so there you go.
Yeah. We also get a classic Marvel trope in the car too, where there's like propulsion system that's like offline, and that's like a problem, and then arbitrarily it's like the propulsion system comes back online, like,
he's got to reboot it, right? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Right, but I'm just saying it's just fucking convenient. And this happens in all the Iron Man movies too, where it's like some part of Tony's suit doesn't work, but it will, but he just needs to hold on until it does. Yeah. And then it's just like, just in the nick of time, it's back online. You're good
just
to go.
Just in the Nick Fury of time.
Ooh, just in the Nick Fury of time.
All right.
Yeah, there you
Can
go.
we get some Nick Fury horns?
Yeah, there you go. But this is where we get to see someone with a mask on, someone who is going to shoot a mine, I guess, underneath the car. It's a
mine launcher,
grenade mine magnetic launcher thing.
It does everything.
It does that, and
it's the Loki staff of mines.
exactly. So, and then when the mysterious person walks up to the car, Fury has dug a hole underground,
burrowed through the ground. That motherfucker, are you kidding me?
And it's not even the only time this happens. Like, this is definitely the worst. The worst of it, but it happens later on where they burrow like a hole into a car and escape.
Did not like that. It's just one of those moments where I'm watching a Marvel movie and I'm thinking to myself, well, God, ain't that just convenient? You know?
Yep. Steve here is headed home, and we see him flirting with the girl across the hall, which is fine. She's later revealed to be Agent 13, but they don't really focus too much on who she is, because that's a bigger backstory that will come in the future.
Yeah.
This is more of just a quick intro to her. In fact, I don't even know. They said her name one time, I think, at the end of the movie, and I think that was Black Widow that said her name was Sharon, which is
oh, gross. Really?
Yes. Yes.
That's not a good name.
Well, yeah, her last name's the more important part, which I don't think they share in this movie. So
you don't think
they're not sharing it with us? Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
they didn't share
Thank you very much, John.
There you go.
Yeah, I think we already covered it, Dan. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Got it. All right. And so the one thing I want to call out here, and I don't know, John, if you noticed the same thing, when she says the music's still on in your apartment, and he goes inside,
of course,
then through the window. The music is a callback, I guess the music is the origin of a future callback, which I did not remember at all. And this was really cool to see this music in the scene, knowing that we're going to hear it again in the future.
Yeah, I literally wrote just in my notes, it's the song in all caps.
It's the song. Yeah. So this is what's been really fun about rewatching this kind of MCU stuff again, is seeing all the things that get called out in future movies, which is pretty cool. We find that Fury is there, and he's trusted Cap. If there's anyone who he's going to trust in this moment, now that he realized that S.H.I.E.L.D. is compromised, he's going to Cap, and he gets shot through the wall by the Winter Soldier. That's what I'm calling him, but I don't think in this moment yet that they've identified him.
No,
yet
at this
as
point,
the Winter Soldier.
it might be Steve Rogers as the Winter Soldier. We don't know.
Yeah,
well,
it's
the
just a
title
guy
didn't
who
tell us.
looks like Jared Leto, and he has a gun.
Yeah, sure. It probably was Jared Leto.
He does.
It might have been Jared Leto.
Yeah,
it's like and it could be like the Winter Soldier later. I like to think that like there's actually two of them, and one is just Jared Leto playing himself.
Yeah, this here I like too, because when Steve goes to chase down Jared Leto, he jumps across to the next building over through these windows, and then like pile drives through these doors in these huge explosive, like,
dude,
just ramming. It was super sick.
This sequence was cool too, because kind of going back to like what I was saying before about how there's a lot of shit in this movie that's like understated. Like one of the things I noticed that actually like stuck with me, and it's like he's running, and like at a certain point he gets to this like 90-degree turn in a hallway, and he like hits the wall and like makes a fucking crater in the wall, and then just like bounces off and keeps running. And it's like there's a lot of shit like that in the movie, and it's like it's cool, like that's cool because you're like showing the power of the character, but you're not dwelling on it. It's like, but the audience gets that this is like a strong guy, and then we just get the fuck on with our lives. It's nice.
It's not like he runs through that floor, hits the wall while he's making the turn, and then it turns to a janitor that goes, I'm gonna have to deal with that later.
Also, the janitor is Stan Lee.
Yeah. No, because again, like phase one, it would have been he hits the wall and keeps going. It would have turned to the janitor, and the janitor would have said, "Wow, this guy must be some kind of superhero, because if a regular person hit this wall, they'd be injured. But did you see that he made a crater in the wall, but he wasn't injured? That's maybe that's Captain America. You know, it's like it's just dumb, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's cool when they just show the thing." And then we're done. It's like here's this fun little thing. Let's keep going.
Yep. Yeah. Well, so he catches up to Winter Soldier, throws the shield, and he grabs that shield like it's nothing, throwing it back with just the most ease. I mean, it looked real sweet, and cousin was a wake-up moment there for Steve that maybe he's not the only superpowered person hanging around that's trying to accomplish these missions. So Winter Soldier gets away, and now we're checking in with Nick Fury at the hospital, which is here where we see Black Widow start to show what her real kind of relationship has been with Fury, which again was diving deeper into who Black Widow is as a person, and diving into more backstory, which I liked.
Yeah, and like another thing I liked about like this part too actually is like I thought that it was kind of cool how in this movie it's like every other instance of Nick Fury that you've seen up until this point, he's sort of just been this like one-man army, total control of the situation. He has the one-liners. He's like this badass. It's like what could, you know, and it's like kind of fun to show that like even Nick Fury himself is not untouchable. At the end of the day, this is just a guy, like, you know. And I think that they've been doing this more in the movies that I've noticed in phase two, where it's like, you know, even these like supercharged characters, there's still consequences for actions, and it's not like they're literally indestructible, because kind of up until this point, Nick Fury has been presented as an indestructible character. And then in this scene, you sort of see that that's not really the case.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as we can tell, Nick Fury is dead. That's it. Yeah. Goodbye. See you, Sam Jackson.
Dude.
Yeah, that's over for you. And so we get a conversation between Director Pierce from S.H.I.E.L.D. and Cap during this moment where we're not 100% sure that Pierce is on the right side yet. Mm-hmm. Like we're kind of, it's not been revealed, but we kind of get these little hints that maybe he is friends with Fury and that he wants to do the right thing, but it kind of leaves off with him almost threatening Cap, like if you get in my way there's going to be a problem. But it was kind of interesting to leave this. It was a weird move.
Well, he also has like a weird line where he's like talking to Cap and he's like, why was Nick in your apartment? And then Cap goes, he told me not to trust anyone. And then Pierce goes, I wonder if that included him. And I'm like, what the fuck kind of line is that? Like, what do you? Why would someone tell you not to trust them? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
And then they get shot through a wall.
Yeah, they got shot through a wall. But then, like, after that line, he threatens Steve. He's like, "Don't get in my fucking way." And I'm like, "Okay, so you're not a good guy." Like,
dude, I also want to say, and this is like a total like meta perspective of the actor, something about old men with lip filler just cracks me the fuck up, and it's the only thing I could pay attention to whenever I saw these Pierce scenes, where I'm just like, bro, like you gotta fucking check the guy doing your lips, because they went a little overboard for this movie. I'm like, that is not what a human face is supposed to look like.
Yep.
That's Robert Redford, bro.
Yeah, well, it's Robert allergic reaction for he looks like he ate something that he was allergic to. Anyway, back to you, Dan.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. This is the big elevator fight scene. This is something that's remembered for quite a while in the MCU. This is a really cool moment where we start to see more and more people piling on the elevator. Steve kind of recognizes one guy with his hand on his gun. Another guy comes in while they're talking. You see him start to sweat. And Steve just calls out the moment. Like, before we get started, does anyone want to get off? Not off, but like off the elevator.
Right, like not like sexually.
Yeah,
not like, hey,
sexually.
Before we get started, would you like me to give all of you fellatio? I don't think that's what. Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure that's not what he meant.
I'm pretty sure that's a different
100%. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know that we could be 100% certain, but I think we're pretty sure that that's not what he meant.
No, honestly, dude. Yo, listen. I'm gonna have my Dan talking about the CGI of the old woman moment right now. Legit, gotta give it to it. This is a cool ass scene. I just I really no complaints. I thought the elevator scene was just tight. Like I like the entire thing. It was fun. I thought that it was cool how they sort of raised the tension because it's like more people keep getting on. He's like, oh, what's happening? And I even thought that the goofy magnet bracelet was like fun. It was like legit, just like this entire, it was like choreographed nicely. It didn't really suffer from like the same issue of like the jumpiness that we saw on the boat. I mean, it was still pretty jumpy, but it's like you could still like follow what was happening the entire time, and then it ends with a nice explosive exit. Like the whole thing was just, it was cool. I liked the elevator scene.
Also, it syncs perfectly to the Freebird solo. So
hell yeah, dude.
But yeah, I was also a big fan of this. This reminds me of the fight scene in I think Daredevil season 1 in the stairwell. Which I don't know if you guys have seen that.
The old boy reference? Or
the
stairwell. Stairwell, not the hallway.
Where it's like, well, I guess leading into both. Kind of just what I'm kind of getting to is like a very small space to fight multiple people all at once. So kind of the hallway where he's like jumping over bodies and like stuff to take down other people, but... Yeah.
It forces like more creative cinematography too in situations like this, I think, because I think a thing that I've called out a lot that these movies have sort of suffered from up until now is this like, there's like a group of goons and then they sort of file in one at a time only to be bested. And then the next one comes in and then there's two guys and then it's like, and then there's one guy, but he's really big. And then that's the end of the scene, whereas like with this shit, like, it actually makes them have to sell it in like a different way. Because it's cool, because he's like in an elevator and he's getting attacked by everybody at once. And it's like, that's a much more interesting dynamic than like a Fight Club-esque circle forming as people just get beaten up one at a time.
Yeah. And it also solves the issue of like group fight scenes where it's like a bunch of people just like dancing around in the background but not actually trying to fight.
Right.
Because in this one, they're all constricted. They're all under the same fucking circumstance. So it's not like they can all attack him at the same time. Right. They have to wait their turn, realistically. So.
Yeah, and they didn't waste any time here. So he jumps out of the elevator, lands on the shield, which even with superpowers, that shit had to fucking hurt. Like, that was a crazy fall. And then to land on that shield, which is not a pillow at all, was a pretty... And you felt that impact really when he landed.
Though.
Those arms, though?
Those arms. And he heads right into this fighting of a jet sequence while he's riding out in his motorcycle, which, again, was another really cool use of the shield. I feel like the CGI here was really good and how they, like, bounced the shield off of the engines and, like, he took it down and then jumped off the backside of it. I thought this whole moment was really well done as well.
I think a thing I was, like, kind of noticing during this part, too, is that, like, And it's like, again, subtle. A big thing I keep saying and like all the shit that I like, but it's like even him like getting the shield back, like was really well done during this part, I thought, because it's like he keeps like the shield keeps like getting away from him. But it's not like this thing where it's like unrealistically just flying out of nowhere. It's like he has to collect the shield again every time. Yeah. But it's like he's collecting it while he's doing other things. So it's not like he's just like throwing the shield and then it's like they're making a big deal about him needing to go get it back. It's like he keeps sort of subtly moving towards where the shield's going to be again and grabbing it, but it's kind of happening in the background of him doing all this other shit. And I just thought it was cool. It was like it was handled well.
Yeah, I think that a lot of successful Captain America action scenes with the shield, the philosophy is that the shield is like its own character and not just like a tool. You know, it's like
totally.
They have to choreograph with the shield as like a focal point of it.
Yeah,
it works really well.
Yeah. So Cap and Widow head to the Apple store to try to get more information off of that flash drive. And wow, was this a interesting moment here, because it was just, you saw the Genius Bar logo in the background. The guy with the Apple shirt came up and flashed his badge.
That Apple guy is one of the dudes that is a like extra. He's not an extra, but he's like a very minor character in Community. So also,
I read something about him, like him and another person were like comedians that were cast on in these like little roles here for this movie.
Yeah. So this guy, his name is DC Pearson or something like that. I forget, but he came up in the same, like I know I recognize him everywhere. He came up in the same comedy group, sketch comedy group as Donald Glover. I used to watch their like YouTube videos back in the day, and I guess Donald Glover brought him on to the cast of Community, which is probably how he got into this movie as well.
Yeah, that's for the Community podcast.
It's for the Community podcast.
So we get the Apple Store scene here, and then they're obviously being tracked because they were able to get the location source of the data on the flash drive, which is the camp that Captain America was trained in. And so they're trying to escape there. They kiss on the escalator to make Rumlow uncomfortable so he doesn't look their way.
Which actually, I gotta say, like, I get the logic behind that.
Yeah,
that was like a thing where I'm like, yeah, totally. If I was like trying to hunt down an assassin and I just saw two freaks making out on an elevator, I'd be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah, and so they head to this camp where the coordinates led them to, where they see pictures of Howard Stark, Peggy, and Tommy Lee Jones, which I still can't remember his name, so I'm just calling it Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, general
up
guy
on the wall. Yeah, general guy Tommy Lee Jones, as he's called. Here's a tech annoyance alert from me. Tech annoyance. Ayo. Even if they had something that could show the most pressed buttons on the code for the elevator, which is fine, like fingerprints, whatever, it wouldn't tell them the order in which it was pressed.
Sure.
So they would have the 4 digits, but they'd have to try it like 4 times, whatever, how many times you'd have to do it to test. So they wouldn't just know. So that was a little bit annoying to me. It's like, okay, I get the fingerprints and I get that. Yeah, sure. But they didn't, because the software said what the code was.
The software's just smarter than you.
Yeah, well, I guess so. So anyways, I don't know. It's like,
it's Stark Tech, bro.
Yeah. Oh, got it. Yeah.
It was based Tony Stark made it.
Yeah, but he used the Loki's staff to create it, actually.
He used it. He harnessed the magic of Loki's staff to make his keypad decryption software.
Yeah, exactly. So we see this giant room with very old data banks and a widescreen monitor from a long time ago from the 70s, which I don't think they ever made CRT monitors in widescreen. Another little tech nerd alert there. Why did they have a CRT and widescreen? Oh, okay, got it. It was Howard Stark widescreen special.
Howard Stark widescreen CRT technology.
I don't know. That was a weird thing to me. Like, they built this whole room to be very 70s and old school technology, and then the CRT is a widescreen. Like,
yeah.
There wasn't any need for it to be a widescreen. Like, just
right, like, yeah, it's like they could have just, like, they thematically got everything else. It's like they could have also just kept the CRT monitor thematically accurate, and it would have been fine.
Yeah,
I agree.
It stuck out to me like a sore thumb when we saw that, because when I worked at Best Buy a very long time ago, I was there when we sold the last CRT monitor in the store for $18. Yeah. It was for 2 weeks. This CRT sat on one table in the front of the computers department, just waiting for somebody to buy it.
You know what would have been cool if instead of the widescreen, they just had like 9 CRT monitors, like all like stacked on top of each other. That would have been really cool, actually. Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know who decided on the widescreen, but I don't like them. So this is where we find out that Zola was maintained through uploading his consciousness to 100,000 data banks or some shit. And we're standing in the brain of Zola, who developed this algorithm that's going to be used on the 3 helicarriers that they're putting into space for Project Insight.
Yeah, and I guess, maybe to answer your question, they needed a widescreen monitor there so that Captain America could dramatically punch it for no reason.
Yeah, and then there was another monitor next to it. And then he's like, all right, I'll leave this one, though.
Right, I thought that was stupid. He's like talking to the guy, and he's like, he gets mad, and he like punches the monitor, but then it's like the monitor just like cracks as opposed to like flying off the motherfucking table, like what really should have, like, it's like, that was just weird. Like, that scene felt out of place to me.
Yeah. Well, it was weird, too, because after he punched it, he then asked more questions,
right? He's like, oh, I'm mad, but as long as we're here.
Let me ask you just a few more things,
right? And also, it's like it's already been established that the guy's brain is like in the room, so I mean, like punching, it's like it wouldn't like even if there wasn't another monitor, it's like he'd still just be like talking to the. It's like it's not doing anything.
Yeah, it's like people who hit their monitor when their computer isn't working fast enough. It's like the computer isn't in there, dude.
Steve Rogers was just pulling a Summit 1G. He'd been watching a little bit too much Summit. And
Exactly, dude. Yeah, I also thought, again, classic Marvel convenience, but I'm like, oh, thank God there was just like a grate behind them that they could just jump into while the entire place was getting firebombed, that made it so that like no negative consequences befell them anyway. Moving on, it's just kind of like, I don't know, there's like other cooler ways I think that they could have handled that scenario, but instead it's just like, this is, he's like a Bond villain. It's like, this is the end for you, Captain America, and he's like, oh well, I'm just gonna turn slightly and there's like a hole in the floor that I can just kind of go into, and now I'm here and nothing bad happens to me, and now we're out of here. It's just like that whole thing just felt like disjointed to me. Like there was like a lot of stuff that just felt kind of clunky about that entire, especially because like that dude is such a cool character. Like I really liked him in the first movie. I kind of wish he had like a better resurgence, but it was sort of weird that he was just like, hey, check it out, here's our evil plan, and now I'm dead, but you conveniently aren't, and you'll never hear from me again,
Or will we?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but the way that they frame it in this movie is such that he's like, I'm committing suicide now after revealing my plot to you.
Well, he does reveal that Hydra has been growing within S.H.I.E.L.D. since almost the beginning. We also see quick notes of people who they've killed to keep that secret, including Howard Stark, which will be something that we will hear more about in the future, is what happened there.
Also, can I say, too, that, like, Hydra, I said it many times, dope as fuck in the first movie. My absolute favorite part of the first movie, like, it just, like, it doesn't hit the same way when it's just like a politician, like, leaning into another politician's ear and going, "Hail Hydra." Like, that shit was cringy. Like,
Dude,
it was.
That shit is so funny.
Yeah, it was just like I was just like this, like I don't know, man. Like you think they'd have like a handshake or something, you know? It's like just like that shit. Like I thought it was like I mean because when it's like when it's like a literal like military offshoot group of the Nazis, it's kind of like oh okay this man. But now we're like 100 years in the future, and it's like you guys couldn't like figure out some other fucking thing. It's like you already have the little lapels. Like isn't that enough? You need to like reaffirm how it's like I don't know. Just it just felt weird.
You gotta keep the
me,
rituals alive, man.
Yeah, I
keep
guess,
tradition.
man. It just felt like some like fan service shit. Like it's like that isn't how it would actually work. That's only happening because this is a movie.
Well, I will say there is another time in the future of the MCU where someone whispers "Hail Hydra," which is actually a good scene.
Sure.
So we'll see.
And you know what? And far be it for me to doubt that. I'm just saying that it was like the amount of times.
It was not great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just it like I get like cringe. Like it was actually like I was like, ooh, oh man, oh, I wish you hadn't done that. You know, like also by the way, at this point, I actually have some Allison thoughts. I got some Allison thoughts down. If you guys want to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get the?
God,
can I get the? All right. All right. Yo, what's up? It's Christian's Allison thoughts corner. At this point in the movie, I paused the movie and looked at my wife, who actually stayed awake this time.
Wow.
So good for her. And I said, hey, do you have some thoughts? And this was the Allison thought. So let's go. Okay. For the budget, they had there are a lot of questionable wigs, toupee toppers, if you will. Pierce looks like hot trash. Absolutely loved the old lady. Thrilling. Most action in the whole film so far. Like they got the makeup artist from Michael Jackson's hit Thriller. That's how thrilled I was to see it. ScarJo's wig ain't all that either. She's just hot, so it doesn't matter.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a perspective that none of us would have brought to the table.
Dude, no, there was like a point, and I was like watching with Allison, and she was like, "Yo, Captain America's front lace is showing," and I was like, "What the fuck? Like, what does that mean?" And she was like, "Go back," and we paused the movie, and she showed me that there's like a tiny separation between like his hair and like where the wig is actually affixed, and it was just this like one scene. But it's funny because she just like notices all that stuff, and and then every time a bad wig would show up in the movie, she'd be like, "There's another example." I didn't catch it either, but after watching this film with Allison, I gotta say, a lot of bad wigs. Like now, I'm trained to see it, and I get her point.
So this is a weird moment here, that we get the reveal of Winter Soldier just with no fanfare. Like we get into Director Pierce's house, he's on the phone or whatever, he turns and there's Bucky sitting at the table with his mask off, just like, oh, okay, so it's Bucky. Like if we didn't know before, we definitely know now. And it was just like, I don't know, it felt like maybe there was a deleted scene we missed or something that didn't make it in, but am I the only one who thought that was like a weird kind of non-climactic way to show who he was?
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think it is like they do this whole sort of like, you know, unhinged super soldier thing, and then it's like there is no sort of dramatic moment where it's like it's just kind of like flowing into the entire story. Like at this point I was like, oh shit, is this guy here to like fuck up Pierce? Is like something weird happening here, you know? Like, and then it's just like the scene just kind of like ends with him like shooting his fucking like
the maid Renata.
Right, where even then I'm just kind of like like that. Yeah.
Was this before or after the scene, the knife fight scene?
This is before the knife fight scene.
Oh, okay. Huh. You would think it would come after.
Yeah, the Bucky reveals later, where the Bucky reveal to Cap is after this.
Maybe they're just banking on you not even recognizing him because of the hair and all that.
No, because they show, I mean, the way that his face is lit up is like they want you to look at his face. It's not like even the shadows like coming over his face or something, but like his face is in plain lit up view in that moment, which again just seemed like an interesting but also not interesting way to reveal Bucky.
Yeah.
We also, this is a minor nitpick. Here we go. Like after this, Captain and Widow show up at like Falcon's house. And it's just this weird thing where it's like, oh, you just like know where he lives, like, but like, you know, and it's like,
I stopped to point this out too.
yeah, it's like it kind of at no point was it ever like, because he was like, hey, you should stop by the meeting sometimes. That had already sort of been established. And like maybe I could assume that like they talked at the meeting off screen and he was like, also here's my home address. But that's even like kind of weird. Like they just sort of show up and they're like, hey, we need to come in. And he's like, oh, yeah, of course. But like, you know, their relationship hadn't really been established at this point as like we've swapped home addresses and we're like, you know, great. But it was sort of like it was kind of like they were like building to a friendship. And then like now suddenly they just are friends. Like and we missed this little gap there.
Well,
go ahead.
I don't think that they're friends. I think that they've established a relationship that is focused in kind of doing the job and getting things done, and like that kind of camaraderie they've built out of their military experience, that they didn't come as friends. They came as people on a mission who needed help with that mission, knowing that Sam would help with that, right?
Yeah.
I also don't think it's too crazy to think that they weren't able to just find Sam's address. Like, they were just hacking a flash drive to try to get the encrypted location of where the source of the data came from. And we're talking about like finding an address for someone that they know the first and last name for, was in the military, like all that kind of stuff. So didn't seem like a super stretch to me to think that they would find that and that they would go to Sam as someone who would help them with their mission, you know?
Yeah. And also, to me, it felt like one of those moments where like you meet someone that you like, you know, you fucking click with, right?
Yeah.
And it's like there doesn't always need to be that like gradual build up to a friendship. Sometimes I feel like this situation is one of those times where it's like I need something and this person can help me out with it, and it's one of those like leaps of faith, and you're just hoping that they like extend their arm out to like catch you, you know? And it kind of like builds up their, it like exponentially increases the buildup of their relationship from there.
Yeah, I feel that. And I mean, again, that's sort of why I framed this as a minor nitpick.
Yeah.
It's minor, you know, but again, it was a little like when I saw this, I was wondering if I had missed something or if I wasn't remembering something, but it's like they just sort of show up at the house and it's just like, hey, we're here now, you know. And I don't think I missed anything. I think that they just kind of teleport to his place.
Minor. I hardly knew her.
Good one, Dan.
Okay. Great. This is where we also find out that Sam is the Falcon, and he shows the little packet that has the Falcon project on it, where he needs to go pick up something. He said he was a pilot. No, he never said pilot.
He never said pilot.
Yeah, and so Sam's joining the crew.
Also, I just want to point out, you know, I just want to put some light on this, that like they come into the house and like kind of tidy up, they like shower and whatever, and this is normally the point in a movie between the main male protagonist and his female companion where they would like have a heart to heart and then they would like kiss romantically this time, you know? But they don't do that, and they very like clearly establish Steve and Natasha's relationship as like friends, and not as anything more than that.
I really like that too. That there wasn't any forced romantical stuff in this movie. You know, like it was really focused on friendships between Sam and Cap, between Cap and Natasha. Like it didn't, you know, because you could have easily taken it that route between Cap and Widow. So yeah, I agree. It was a cool kind of shift in the normal kind of movie structure to really solidify those two as becoming actual friends.
Yeah.
This is the Hail Hydra whispered into the
R.I.P.
into the
Gary
guy's
Shandling.
ear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good, dude. Again, I was
It's
just like,
not.
ugh. Yeah.
It's not. It's
Jeez.
not.
I laugh every single time.
Yeah, it felt uncomfortable. It did. But we also see now that Falcon's got his wings. They're gonna go grab that guy, which was the councilman, or I don't know, the bald guy was Stillwell, I think it was his name.
I don't know. I hate that guy's face.
Yeah, I don't know. There was something about him, but one thing that he did do during this moment where they're interrogating him to try to get information is he mentions a few people that are also under the radar for that algorithm that Zola came up with, mentioning people like Bruce Banner.
Oh my God.
And also Stephen Strange, which later on
Who's
will, Doctor Strange, obviously. And this is a weird moment because
Okay.
he hasn't, in the timeline of the MCU, become Doctor Strange yet. So the only way you could assume that he's on that list is because their algorithm, again, is trying to predict future problems for them. And that somehow they know that Stephen Strange. I mean, yeah, it has to be because, again, we'll find out in the future that the timeline doesn't line up between when he becomes the hero Doctor Strange and the timeline of this movie. So, but it was kind of a call out to say, like, hey, MCU, this person's coming. Like, we're referencing him now, and Stephen Strange is going to be part of this universe.
Right.
Yeah. And so they talk about Zola's algorithm. They talk about all the data that they're using, which is kind of a funny moment here to reference the real world of just how much data is out there on every single human being. And it wasn't too far away from the truth of today. Cameras and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and all this shit being used to find potential future problems here for utilizing these helicarriers. This is where we get another sighting of the Winter Soldier. And this is
the Winter Soldier reveal. Like,
this is the big old fight. But what was sick was when he was on the car and then they break, and he flies off and he does this like landing where he like digs his hand into the ground to pull him from falling forward. I thought this was a really cool like moment. Again, every kind of action sequence in this movie, you feel the impact of what they're doing. The environment reacts appropriately. Their movements, the way he was scraping the ground to stop himself, it all felt really good. Unlike, a previous movie where it would have just been them landing perfectly with no momentum, Right.
And I mean, and I think to that point too, I mean, it really sort of like illustrates like some of the problems I had with like Thor, for example, like the first Thor movie, where it's like I almost couldn't like quite put it into words until I like see this movie and I'm like, oh, that's like it didn't feel right in Thor because it's like the shit he's doing seems disproportionate to the impact that it's having. Like, whereas in this one, like everything felt nice. I mean, not every. They took some creative liberties here and there, but by and large, it's like everything felt pretty proportionate. Again, Captain punching the monitor as an example. there are moments where it's not that, but they paid attention to it this time, which was good.
Yeah, like Cap getting shot by the grenade launcher by Winter Soldier, and he gets like blown off the side of the freeway and hits the bus and knocks that shit all over. That was a cool moment here. And so we get a little bit of Natasha versus Winter Soldier while Cap's trying to get his shit back together. But really what we're leading up to here is the Winter Soldier versus Cap moment and the big Bucky reveal. After Nat is shot, she gets her kind of escape in this moment, which leads them to this kind of larger fight, which is now the knife play. We get to see the knife play work, which again, this was just really great. I'm not normally one who's like into just tons of action sequences with no like story to kind of keep it moving, but these longer action sequences really held me in through these moments. Same. I thought they were great.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, legit. Like, I don't like, I know I'm being like kind of quiet. Like, oh, it's like I don't even really have that much to say about this part, other than the fact that I'm just like, yeah, it was good. Like, I don't know, felt appropriate. Yeah. I liked it. Like, whatever, it was chill.
I found myself in some of these moments like forgetting to take notes. So there were a couple moments where I just had to like rewind and make sure I caught things because I was just really enamored by like all these sweet sequences and trying to keep up with what was going on. But yeah, so we get the Bucky reveal, which finally Cap realizes that it's him. And you can tell in this moment that Bucky kind of breaks a little bit when he realizes that he's called Bucky and like that it's waking up something inside of him. And this like rattles Steve quite a lot in this moment, which kind of ends the fight. Cap, Sam, and Nat are all taken into custody for Hydra and Shield.
Yep, and then we get another appearance of the hot girl. She's back. Shout outs. I made a note of that. I was pretty pumped. We also get one of my least favorite scenes in the movie, actually, coming out of like this next part where they it's like they're kind of like going into Bucky's backstory a little bit, and about like, you know, how he was sort of picked up by Hydra and his mind was wiped and now he's this monster. And we get like kind of this like throwback to, and I hate to say it, but it needs to be said, the Hulk. The intro like scene of the Hulk, where we get this weird, unnecessary feeling first person view of him like waking up with like CGI hands and he's like choking someone with them. And I was just like, I didn't like that at all, really. It's like, I don't know, it felt clunky. It's like, you know, you could have shown that so many other ways, but it's like you need, you know, it's like it's him and they're like, the operation was a success. And then he's just like choking them, but like it's first person. Like, I don't know. It was fucking strange. It was just weird. It's like, it felt jarring to me.
Yeah, and then in the background of one of the shots, Bruce Banner is there, and he says, "You better not get me angry."
Oh, you think he's bad when he's angry? Just wait till you see what would happen if
the other guy. Yeah.
You don't want to like, oh man, if I hit 200 BPM, oh boy, you would not want to see that. I think.
Yep. Well, we do find out that Fury did fake his death, and another nod to Bruce Banner here, who they provided a pill or something that slowed his heart rate down to 1 beat per minute.
Right.
Developed by Bruce Banner, obviously.
Developed by Bruce Banner.
I don't know if you know this, but when his heart rate goes up, he sometimes turns into the Hulk.
Right. Yeah. I actually had forgotten about that,
okay,
and
cool.
then they drew more attention to it in this movie, and I remembered again.
Yeah, that's. I'm really glad they reminded us. Also, quick note that the doctor in that facility is Anthony Russo. One of the directors.
Is it Anthony or is it Joe?
It's one of them.
Okay.
For sure. I think it's Anthony, but
his
maybe
name
it's
is like
Joe.
Dr. Fine or something like that in the credits. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know who that is, but
yeah, he shows up in almost everything that he does. He like puts himself in his own movies, which again, hey, whatever, I guess.
Kind of like a meta point again, but like sort of around here, I kind of found myself thinking like, you know, so Shield's been compromised by Hydra, like whatever, I can buy that, but like, what? But like, why hire Nick Fury? Like, and I get that they sort of have like a moment later where he's like, "Why me?" And it's like, "Well, because you're the best at what you do." But that just seems like a weird explanation for me. Like, I'm just like, I think their plan like kind of would have gone off without a hitch, but even then it's like sort of like how involved is Hydra versus how involved aren't they? Because I was kind of like, oh no, like Shield's been compromised, now Hydra's running the show. But then like Captain America is like, your organization has been taken over by Hydra, and there's like enough people in it that like aren't Hydra that then they're like, oh, that's not good. We've been doing things for Hydra the entire time. And so it's kind of like, how powerful is Hydra? It's like they're powerful enough that they can like infiltrate one of like the largest defense security things in the world and like make their own algorithms and start making plays to like take out any and all who oppose them. But then like they couldn't possibly foresee the hiring of Nick Fury being like an issue there, or they couldn't like clean house of the people who weren't Hydra before it was time to enact their evil plan. Like it just felt a little incongruent to me, I guess. I was sort of confused at this point as to like what the power level of Hydra actually was, because they sort of simultaneously seemed to be like lethally competent and like comically incompetent at the same time. And it was like at this point a switch sort of flipped into the comically incompetent part, and I just sort of noticed it.
Sure. Yeah,
I have nothing to say about that.
That's just fair. Yeah, it's fair. It's hard to. It's also hard to kind of determine because it's been 70 years of it, right? So like, it's not like they did this over the course of 3 years very stealthily. It's like, you know, there was a lot of very slow movement to get to where they were in that point.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I'm just saying it's like they got to the top, but then they couldn't like, I don't know, cross their T's and dot their I's, but also they did like they did it with like relentless efficiency in some places, but then in other places there are just these giant gaping holes in their plan that like no one ever was like, hey, maybe we do something about this, you know? Like I don't know.
Also, the Death Star had a self-destruct button, essentially, that you could trigger by shooting a hole from the outside.
Yeah,
of
but
it,
they
so.
explained it. That was part of the plans from someone who wanted the Death Star to have a weakness.
Okay, sure,
right.
I'm sure it was. Anyways, so they determined that as they talk, Fury, Hill, Nat, Steve, Sam, that not only are they looking to take down those carriers, but S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to go. Not just Hydra, but also S.H.I.E.L.D. And looks like Cap's in charge now.
Hell yeah.
Which is where we get the little Small Steve flashback scene here. And again, yeah, the Small Steve moments here, his head didn't feel overly large. And it also, I wonder if they took this advice from you, Christian, specifically. They went back in time, like into the future, and then went back to fix his like jawline a bit. Right,
no, totally, dude.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel like he was super buff Steve.
Yeah, I said it earlier, but I was pleasantly surprised by this flashback. I was like, hey, dude, that works, you know, whatever the fuck. Like it's like, and beyond even works. I mean, it was like beyond serviceable. Like I was actually like, oh, this is like good. This is like beyond what it was in the first movie, you know?
Yep. Look, Cap's gonna need a suit of armor here for his. He's gonna need a uniform for this mission, and he goes to the museum and steals his original uniform for this upcoming mission. And Stan Lee's gonna get fired now.
Oh, wouldn't you know it? Oh boy.
Yeah. And so they break into the tricycle, and
they break into the tricycle factory.
Yeah, the tricycle factory. And this is a big Cap speech. This is what Captain America does. He just comes up with these speeches off the top of his head. And we're going to see more speeches from Cap in the future, which inspire the world to do good.
Yeah.
And it definitely inspires some people here to help the cause.
That's his real superpower.
And I mean, this was this was just like another kind of one of those like weird moments for me where, again, it's like I feel like you just got to kind of suspend disbelief for this entire thing, because it's like there's this like wanted fugitive and like all hands on deck. They're like hunting him down. Like the organization is completely compromised. They've all been fed propaganda that like, you know, this dude is the real menace, and it's like, you know, and like everyone's kind of been hunting him. And then he like breaks into their facility and then goes on the intercoms and he's like, actually, I'm not the bad guy. These other people are the bad guy. And everyone's like, oh, fuck, I guess I never thought about it like that. Like, you're right. We are behind you now. And again, it was just kind of this thing where I'm like, oh, okay, sure, fuck it. Why not? But it felt a little convenient. It was a little convenient that it went down like that.
Sure. But again, that's his superpower, is convincing people with speeches.
Right, his superpower is just making everyone feel so patriotic that they have to listen to what he says.
Exactly. So the guy tries to go against his orders against Rumlow and won't launch the helicarriers, and then causes a giant gunfight to break out in that launch room. And Sharon, well, not Sharon yet, Agent 13 steps in to put her gun to Rumlow's face to try to back him down. He ends up overriding it anyways, so the whole thing didn't matter.
Yep.
The helicarriers have launched, and now we get into the ending of this movie, the last major fights and helicarriers and action sequences, and the goal here is to get this disc into all 3 helicarriers to take them all down against each other.
Video game quest.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the
funny
final
too,
quest.
dude. Like, because I've been playing Final Fantasy and I couldn't
here
even
we
help.
go.
I noticed it's like even like the chips. It's like it's like the end game raid currency in Final Fantasy, and so it's like. And it's like, just to John's point, I'm like, yeah, it is a quintessential video game quest. It's like, oh shit, there's like 3 things, and you need to put the chip in 3 places, or else everyone dies.
Yeah. Okay, nerd. Well, they get 2 helicarriers handled, no problem. The helicarriers, those 2, easy. But the third is going to be a little bit more of a problem. But while this is all happening, there's a big reveal here in the moment. So Pierce, after it's revealed that Hydra has taken over, Pierce takes a hold of all those diplomats in the conference room that they're in. But turns out one of them was not who they seemed.
Oh my God.
Holy.
Yeah.
And we've got a little face-changing technology, which, again, this is not the last time we will see this face-changing technology in the MCU. And it was Natasha the whole time. Suck it,
wow.
Pierce. And so she's held him under a gun to try to get the helicarriers disabled or do whatever she can to make that happen. And Pierce says, oh, but we need 2 alpha level employees to handle this.
Foiled your plan.
Yeah, 2 of them are needed. Oh, but there's company coming in a helicopter looking real dope. It's Fury.
It's Nick Fury.
Yeah. Yep. Suck it, Pierce. That's what I wrote in my notes. I said, suck it, Pierce.
Yeah.
Fury's here to ruin your day.
Yeah, I also feel like, I mean, he has those like lapel bombs on everyone, right? Like,
Yeah.
Which, like, if it was me, like the minute anyone punched me in the face, I would just set those off instantly. Like that would be the first thing I did. It's like I would be like, oh, okay, I kind of have good. It's like, why even have the lapel bombs if not saving them for an instance where one of the people in the room physically attacks you? Like, isn't that when you like? It's like, it's kind of weird because that whole thing happens, and then it's like this lead up to this dramatic reveal that he's actually placed bombs on everybody. But it's like just you're being attacked. Isn't that the whole fucking reason that you have the bombs, dude? Just set them off.
He couldn't trigger Face ID on his phone. He had to hold his phone up, so he couldn't get it out of his pocket.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, sick. You're right. Never mind. That makes complete sense now.
Yes, absolutely. We do get the eye reveal here from Fury, which shows his dead eye, which tech annoyance alert here. Like, okay, if they deregistered his account, that means all of his facial scans would have been taken out, including his dead eye. Like that's not. It's not like they disabled the left eye only. Like
they just forgot the other eye existed, dude.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we don't need to disable his right eye because that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, he has an iPad.
No, that
right.
eye is blind. It doesn't do anything.
No.
Oh, is that what that means? Third eye blind? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's that.
Okay,
that's that
got
band.
it. That's that band, yeah. Winter Soldier is tearing things apart and rips off Falcon's wing. And also, I realized in this moment as I was watching Falcon kind of fly through the air and do this fight with Winter Soldier, it's amazing how much these wings change in the future. I totally forgot that these were kind of like the first wings. They're very, like, industrial and like not well like kind of built out, no real color or anything. I kind of liked the early design of these wings a lot, but man, it gets a lot more smooth in the future. I didn't realize how clunky these wings looked in this movie too.
And they kind of really did a good job selling the fact that like the Falcon could be a cool action character, because going into the movie I was thinking, how the hell are they going to make a dude with like giant robot wings like cool to watch fight? But his transitions between like non-wing combat to jumping off of things and like folding them out, and then he goes into like dog fights, and then he folds them back in, like flips onto the ground, like
and I actually totally agree with you. Like, I think that Falcon was by far the lamest part of the movie, and it still like wasn't that lame, you know? Like, it was like you know what I mean? It was like in comparison to everything else, like Falcon kind of sucks, but like he's okay, you know? Like, it's like because I sort of had to, like, when I saw the wing reveal, he's like shung, and the wings come out. I was like, oh boy, here we go. This is gonna be dumb as fuck. And then he actually gets to doing shit, and I'm like, oh, that's fine, actually.
But it was better than the crossbow reveal from Hawkeye.
Much better than the crossbow reveal from Hawkeye, yeah.
Now, if Falcon's wings popped out and they flopped around for a second.
I don't know. I might like them more.
Oh God! Or if
his
the way
entire
he flew,
body like shudders every time. It's like they come out and he's like, oh.
Or the way that he flew was not like with jets, but it was his wings would flap.
They would flap.
Oh God! Yeah, that would have been nice. So the helicarrier is now firing up. They're getting their targets. And we're at the final fight with Bucky and Cap. I want to say, like, too, on the firing aspect of the entire thing, that, like, it's kind of more like classic like Marvel shit too, where again there's sort of this like nebulous like count up, and then like eventually something's going to happen at the end, and then it's like, oh no, you need to like fix it before this thing happens. But this movie does like kind of an egregious thing in my opinion, and I think it happens before the final fight. If it happens afterwards, then I'm maybe going a little bit out of order, but I want to point it out anyway, where it's like, sir, all targets acquired, and then he's like, okay, firing in 3, 2, 1, and then like Captain America like gets the shit shut down, and then they're like, whoa, no, we lost the targets.
Like, where are the targets?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's just like, just fire the fucking thing. Like, what the fuck was that dumb scene? That was so dumb, dude.
It has to charge up. Right.
Well, but it did. That was the whole thing it was doing before, and then it's charged, and then he's like, because he's like, all targets acquired, the thing is charged, and he's like, okay, well now we're just gonna arbitrarily wait 3 seconds before we launch the super weapon that the guy is trying to take out. It was just like it was just meaningless.
Like I'm like, buffer in case they decided to change their mind and become good guys instead.
Right. Yeah. For sure. It's like, hey, it's not too late.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was after the final fight.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. But no, I was thinking
fine.
about it. Yeah.
No, I mean, look, this now really is more of just a conversation of this fight being sweet, like cool. Getting to see this happen. Now, one moment that happens here during the fight is that one of the helicarriers starts to go into one of the buildings, and Sam is running out trying to get away. Rumlow is captured underneath the rubble of the building, and so Sam is running out and goes, I'm on the 41st floor, come get me. And so Fury is flying the helicopter towards him, and Sam jumps out. Now we get our first instance of jumping into.
Ooh, jumping into a helicopter.
Into a helicopter.
Yeah, I know.
And I think they put it there specifically because we have been calling it out. They went into the future, heard our podcast, then went back and said, we got to put this in.
Right.
But yeah, so I thought that was great. Jumping into a helicopter this time. But yeah, I think just overall, this is where Bucky and Cap are just duking it out. Cap at some point just decides, like, I'm not going to keep fighting you. You're my friend, Bucky. But Bucky isn't listening, and this is, real sad for Cap. It's just, you do see the destruction that metal arm does to Cap's face, though. And I did like seeing injuries on Captain America like that, because I think this might be one of the only times we see that kind of physical breakdown of being destroyed by someone like that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And this is like one of the only times we ever see him get shot and like actually bleed. He was bleeding
multiple times shot. Yeah.
Yeah. He's human, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I thought, and I agree. I mean, I thought that this was like a cool climactic finale. And I know I keep sort of like comparing this movie to previous ones, but what's the fucking point of this podcast, I guess, if I'm not going to do that? But like, it fixed another issue that I think a lot of older like Marvel movies have, where sort of to your point, Dan, it's like they're actually like sort of doing damage to each other, where it's not like, your classic Iron Man scene where two guys in suits are just punching each other and like nothing's really happening and it doesn't matter anyway. It's like, I mean, again, you see this and there's like stakes. There's like injuries involved and like things might go wrong. I mean, they're not gonna go wrong because it's a fucking Captain America, and they're not going to end the Captain America movie by like Bucky pounding his brain into like a fucking thin paste or whatever. But still, but at least like something's happening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this ends with Steve taking down the final helicarrier as that countdown's happening. Thank goodness for the countdown.
Yeah, thank God, because, dude, if that guy had not gone 3, 2, then everything would have been fucked. But fortunately, that's not what happened.
Yeah, and then Bucky pulls Cap out of the water and takes off. And that's the last we'll see of the Winter Soldier for this moment. And now we get kind of the wrap up of the movie. We see Sam in the hospital waiting for Steve, and we see a sweet shot of an iPhone 4, I think, playing Marvin Gaye. Really like just big picture of an iPhone on the screen, which again was pretty funny to see all the Apple stuff in this movie. But yeah, so we see him in the hospital. Things start to wrap up. Nat's at Capitol Hill. She's talking to these general politicians, people that want to know about where Cap is and what happened and why we shouldn't arrest Natasha and them. And it's because, you know what? We need them. We just do. They're the Avengers. They're above the law. So we're going to need them in the future. So they're not going to arrest her. And then Fury is setting some stuff on fire. Just stuff that exists, I guess, that including his eye patch, because you got to set that on fire.
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, it's the end of the movie. You got to be really dramatic.
Yeah, and so they all meet at his grave where they discuss kind of next steps. Fury's heading over to Europe. Nat grabs information about Bucky's program, the thing that he went through to become the Winter Soldier. And it seems that is the next mission for Cap and Sam, is they're going to find out what happened to Bucky and where he is now and how they can help him.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah. Get a little mid-credit scene here.
And we get our favorite prop of the MCU.
Bro, I was like kind of on board with this, and then it's like all of a sudden they're like, oh, actually, like Loki's staff is going to make an appearance. And this, by the way, I've been spoiled on various points of the MCU, right?
Sure.
Like just because it's existed in pop culture for so long, but a reoccurrence of Loki's staff was a shocking turn of events. I had no idea. Yeah. I really thought we had seen the last of this. I did not know that they were going to be reintroducing that staff again. All I can hope is that if we see it in the future, it's handled a little bit better than it was in the Avengers, but I'm not super hopeful. So we'll see where the future takes us.
Yeah, so what we know is that they're utilizing a mixture of the staff and other kind of mythical things to potentially make superpowered beings, which is where we see Quicksilver and Wanda, who are twins. and will play a role in upcoming movies. And this was kind of a big reveal here to see these two show up because, Wanda, known as the Scarlet Witch in the comic universe, it's a big character to introduce here to the MCU.
Sure.
Quicksilver, the first super speed hero that we've seen, I think, in the MCU so far. So another cool one there to see.
Yeah.
And then an end credit scene. Did you catch this as well?
Yeah. We get your boy Bucky going to the Captain America Museum and reading his own biopic to try to understand a little bit about his past and what led him there. And then we get a chilling close-up on his face as sad truths begin to finally dawn upon him. And then the movie's over.
Yeah, you should have narrated that part.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I agree. I should have.
Wow. Well, we made it.
We did
through
it,
another
dude.
Captain America movie.
Yeah, shout outs, guys. Time for
ratings?
What we liked, what we didn't like, and then some final thoughts from John, along with some ratings.
Hell
So
yeah.
Sure.
I know I've been sort of saying this the entire time. And I think like maybe the theme of the thing that I found the most positive about this movie is, again, I feel like it's a nice step in the direction of things being left a bit understated. I think that when you have a film like this, it's like one of the points I've harped on a lot during this podcast is the fact that it's like it treats the audience like weird idiots, and you need to like go really far out of your way to explain every single piece of minutia, or perhaps someone in the theater will be left wanting. And, there's like a time and a place for that, I guess. Again, this movie falls into that at points for sure. There are things that could have been understated that aren't. Again, I think probably the most egregious example to me is the scene of Nick Fury in the car. Like, that was just goofy, whatever. But I feel like the Nick Fury car scene is sort of the predominant feel of a lot of the movies that have led up to this. And I can say in this movie, it's like the Nick Fury car scene is more of sort of like a one-off thing that like stood out to me because so much of the movie isn't that. It's trying to, go in a more subtle direction. Which I really enjoyed, actually. And again, it's kind of fucking me up. I'll be totally honest, because going into the first Captain America movie, I expected if there was a movie that I was just gonna not like at all, it would have been that. That ended up being the standout of phase one to me for sure. And again, going into this, I'm kind of like, well, can they capture lightning in a bottle twice? Turns out, yeah, actually, I did not hate this movie, truly. And this is maybe genuinely the first Marvel movie that we've watched, sincerely, where I like more about this movie than what I don't like about this movie.
We're winning. It's happening.
And it's weird that it has to be a Captain America movie that does this, but it's so I think because of that, I'm going to have to rate this the highest I've ever rated a Marvel movie in this podcast. We're going to go ahead. We're going to give this guy a 6.8. Give it a 6.8. Not quite a 7. But you know what? I actually gotta say, I enjoyed this. This is the first Marvel movie that we have watched where I found myself, against my better judgment, frankly, having fun. I had a little fun at points watching this one. I liked aspects of it. You know what? I was gonna end by saying something negative. I'm not even gonna do that. We'll leave it at 6.8. I enjoyed it. Dan, over to you.
Dan, let's go.
Wow. Glad to hear that. Here's the thing. So for this movie, there were a lot of technological standouts for me that pulled me out of the moments, right? So one I mentioned was the elevator passcode scene. That doesn't make any sense. The other one was the flash drive. It was encrypted, meaning you can't get the data off of it, meaning that you can't get the location data off of it. It's all data. If it's encrypted, it's all encrypted. It's not some of it is encrypted and some of it is available for you to hack. So there were kind of just a lot of these weird moments in like the widescreen CRT monitor. And it's like, these are not difficult things to maneuver around. So they just feel lazy to anyone who's thinking at all about the technical aspects of these things, right? Now, obviously, there's technology that can be put in the chest of an Iron Man outfit and like power a suit, right? Of course. But it at least sticks with a theme that kind of makes sense. Like none of that technology exists, so it can kind of be its own thing. But when you have other technology that does exist and you put that into this world and you don't put any type of common sense into how it's used, it kind of just brings those moments down for me. And then the fucking Peggy Carter old person moment, just I couldn't even pay attention to the sincerity of the moment because the face was just so distracting. So anyways, didn't like it. Overall, I forgot like how much I really liked this movie. I really enjoyed it. The fight scenes kept me in it. I didn't get bored at them. Like I just watched The Gray Man on Netflix, which is the one with like what's his name, Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans as the bad guy. The fight scenes were just like, fuck, okay, like can we get to more of the story? Like the fight scenes were just boring because it was just two guys just pummeling each other the whole time, right? But this movie definitely didn't feel that way. So overall, I would put this movie at a 7.8 out of 10. Okay. Really enjoyed this movie a lot.
Nice.
John,
my turn.
Bring us home.
Bring us home. So a little meta point that I really liked about this movie, incorporated with the podcast, is that we're getting a lot of good points from Christian and a lot of criticism from Dan. And it's really fun to watch you guys kind of like flip the scripts on your roles in this podcast. But yeah, in terms of this movie, I knew I liked it. I knew it was one of my favorite MCU movies going into it. And that still holds up. I didn't remember how bad that old lady Peggy Carter thing was. I actually ended up being kind of impressed by it, but also like very disturbed by it at the same time. But I also didn't realize how big of a shift this movie was in the MCU in terms of like bringing the Marvel movie into a genre that exists on its own. This was kind of like the first it was like a real action movie. It wasn't like a superhero action movie. It was like a Jason Bourne-ish kind of genre. And I really like that each of the not every single one of the movies after this, but a lot of them kind of take their own twists on genres and then put Marvel into them. And I really like that. Overall, I think I'm going to give this, because I went back. I looked at my previous ratings for Captain America 1 and the Avengers. I gave Captain America a 7, and I gave the Avengers a 7.1 because I wanted to give them both a 7, but I did end up enjoying the Avengers more than Captain America, so I bumped it up by 1 point. This one, I think I'm going to go similar rating. I'm going to go 7.5.
Nice.
I'm not a huge action fan, but the direction that they're taking these movies in, the character growth, was all really good. Some cheesy one-liners kind of dampened the score a little bit, but I think 7.5 is a solid score for it.
Yeah. This was a clear turning point movie for the MCU.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I hope it continues to go in this direction because goddamn Phase 1 sucked. What
so
the fuck?
Bad,
Well,
Jesus Christ.
We've got another good one coming up. So next episode is Guardians of the Galaxy, which a movie that people were like, what? What are you doing? Nobody's heard of Guardians of the Galaxy before, right? Non-comic book nerds. This seems like a weird path to take to just introduce this new crew of people in the middle of Phase 2, but I think this is going to be another good watch. So tune on back in 2 weeks for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hell yeah, and we'll see you all then. Excelsior, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.